All right, here we go. Another episode, another great guest here in our community. This is the Vital Wire. All right. Dan Vincent, welcome.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
so excited to be here.
Absolutely. We've done a lot of good work together.
There we go.
I'll let you kind of explain a little bit of that. But just for everybody, this is Dan Vincent. We've worked with him on everything that he's going to tell you about here in just a second. But we just kind of want to dive into your story, kind of tell us a little bit about you. I know there's your beautiful family, and just kind of take us through. Where'd you come from? Where'd you grow up? Tell us all the things, and we'll kind of jump into some more of what you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm from this area, so St. Charles is home for me.
Yeah. I love that.
Graduated at Francis Howell way back 20 plus years ago, and that's all I'll say about that. And so I grew up here for middle school and high school at least. And went off to college to go to seminary.
Okay.
Went to seminary with this kind of vision for ministry, and worked in a couple different church plants in Nashville and Buffalo, New York, and even spent some time overseas in Brazil as a missionary, which is actually where I met my wife.
Okay.
Actually, we met in Brazil as teenagers.
That's right.
But after we were married and we were growing our family, we lived in Brazil for a little spell, serving a ministry down there. Ended up finding our way back here back in 2012, I think it was. We moved back, and we had 3 small kids who are now I have a college student.
Oh my goodness.
And 2 high schoolers
Where the
now.
heck has the time
So they're not 3 small children anymore. But
I know when we met, she was just starting high school.
Yeah. Now that same one is starting college, swimming for college. Actually.
Aww, that's so fun.
Awesome.
Where at?
Yeah, so really excited. But so we're here. We've been here for the last 12 years. For my wife, she's a little bit of a missionary in another context for her, from her perspective. But we have a lot of close ties here, even outside of my own family that are still here.
That's so cool.
So that's a little bit about where I'm from. And so I mentioned ministry, and we did that for probably the first half of our marriage, and eventually kind of transitioned for a lot of different reasons, but kind of transitioned into these jobs where I wasn't doing church work, quote unquote, which is what I always thought I was going to do,
right.
which is what I went to school to do, right?
Yeah.
And so I found myself back in 2009, 2010, something like that, sitting in a cubicle thinking, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh, wow,
This isn't, and I thought, this isn't what I'm called to.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
And
because it's banking, right?
yeah, I was with Bank of America.
Yeah.
I was in Brazil during the 2008 housing crash. So when I came back from the mission field, I was pretty oblivious to what was going on in America.
Oh my goodness.
And so I, lo and behold, I got into that work, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so high anxiety job, a job that really I didn't really care about. I was just trying to figure out a way to, kind of get back on our feet coming off the mission field. And so I asked myself that question, or I at least made that comment, this is not what I'm called to. And so I kind of went on a journey from there. I received some coaching.
Yeah.
I was introduced to a couple tools that were really helpful to help me really try to stay patient in that season. It was hard. I wanted to just eject.
Right.
And I ended up with the mentality of, you know what, this isn't the bus I want to be on, but I'm here. Let me find the best seat for the time being.
Yeah.
And let's work through this and figure this out. And so I really had an evolution in how I understood calling and vocation and ministry and work and things of that nature.
What did you enjoy about that job?
Yeah.
What were you good at when you were at Bank of America?
Oh man,
know exactly why I'm asking this.
Yeah, well, that specific role, I would say little to nothing was enjoyable with that specific role.
Sure.
So I ended up kind of figuring out what's a different seat. You know, that's one good value of like a large corporation. Sometimes corporations, you can dog them easily for like, oh, I don't want to work for the man. And, you know, yeah, there's a lot that makes sense with that. And a lot of people don't fit with that. But there can be some benefits. And one of the benefit is if you don't like what you're doing, just do something else.
Right.
There's like 8 dozen other jobs within that company. And so that's what I did. I was like, I figured out some roles that suited me better as I was growing. And so the last role I was in, to answer your question, was it was an operations manager. And so I was able to, or I was responsible for scouring thousands of client surveys and gaining insights from them.
Oh my
and
goodness.
so I was doing big data analysis and I was interpreting results, and I was taking it to executives and saying, hey, this is working, this is not working. Hey, this is what happens whenever we behave this way. The trend line tends to go like this. And when we behave this way, the trend line tends to go that way. So I found myself like, hey, I enjoy that kind of thinking. Even if I didn't want to be in that particular company, I enjoyed that, stretching myself in that way. And
cool.
My mind works a little bit that way as well.
See, and he already knows this, but like the data I like to see goes this way. All the time. It goes this way. And so for somebody like you to be able to kind of sift through, analyze data, and just the way you kind of work and operate, and finding that is so helpful for a lot of people. But yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm like, I'm not a big history person. It's like, no, I just, whatever it takes to make it go this way. Just let me know when we've hit that. I just lose the rest of it.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I helped him know that. And so we got into all sorts of nerdy analytical stuff. I learned a lot, so I'm not necessarily an expert at all that kind of stuff. But my mind does tend to lean in that direction, and so I do enjoy some of that type of work.
That's so fun.
So and then. So with what you're doing now, let's kind of jump in because we've utilized you in a couple different facets. Yeah. But our team had actually brought this up because we do more of an analysis on our team that I'll let you kind of speak on, and we've done this ever since. We've never had
a team member not take this test.
The test, and so just kind of speak a little bit to that and kind of segue into, so what are you doing now and what does that particularly look like?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I ended up, I was only with the bank for like 7.5, 8 years, something like that. And actually had an opportunity to leave the bank to do ministry. Not church ministry, it was a nonprofit here local, Kids Against Hunger. So it was a real grassroots nonprofit it was faith-based humanitarian work. And we worked mostly in Haiti. There were some other things that we did. And so I thought, man, that's a perfect segue out of this company that I didn't really want to be with, and really kind of went back to some of the things that I was originally passionate about in college in terms of serving and ministry and that kind of a thing. And so with that new job, I had a whole new capacity, and going from a 9-to-5 work from home to a small nonprofit where I reported to a board once a month, and in terms of my daily routines, it was like, you need to fundraise, and you need to get out in the community, and you need to make relationships. Like, how you do that, like, that's for you to decide. You just need to get it done. And so it was this whole new like blank canvas of work. And so while I was doing that, I started investing into coaching. And so I became a Gallup certified strengths coach with the Clifton Strengths Assessment, which is the assessment you're referring to. And I started kind of putting myself out there along with being this director of this nonprofit. I wanted to start working with people. Primarily, initially, I wanted to work with people who went through the same struggles and obstacles I did. Hey, this is what I'm quote unquote called to. Holy cow, it didn't work out like I thought, or it looked different. What do I do now? This is the only thing I'm prepared for. How do I make the decisions to adjust and do some, and how do I figure out what's the best way to turn, and
Right.
what's the best role, what's the best industry, that kind of a thing, and what am I quote unquote called to? And so I really started to form a lot of the foundation for my coaching business now, which is the clues to your calling have more to do with you than any kind of credential or job title that you may want, even if it's a title that you go get, like, but your calling, before you even get to that point, let's figure out who you are. What do you have to offer? Because you have what it takes.
Yeah.
Right.
You have everybody has what it takes. Everybody is called, and I say that kind of loosely, everyone is called to provide a good work in their community.
Yeah.
What does that look like? I like to start with the individual. And the Clifton Strengths Assessment is one of the better assessments, I think. It's just a tool, but it's one of the better tools out there that I think helps people slow down a little bit on but I want this corner office with the window. Like, slow down.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get there, but let's not focus there yet. Let's spend some time with you first. What do you have to offer?
And
what's the
what I
good work
love.
that you bring?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I love about the Gallup Strength Finders is we like you said, we've used it for absolutely everyone in the office because we love to see what their strengths are and be able to properly serve them in that way, so that we're not either speaking to them wrong or putting them in a position that they shouldn't be in, such as like an executor or an achiever being at the front desk or something like that, where they're not going to like where they're at because they're not going to be able to do things or check things off the list or anything like that. And so we recently revisited it with our team again, and they've just been geeking out, and they actually wanted us to do a podcast on it, which is why
you could have done it.
I was like, I mean, I might know a lot of things about it, but I was like, I have to message Dan, which is why you're actually sitting here today, which I'm so excited to have you. Obviously, you're incredible with all of this, but that's why we personally fell in love with the assessment, was because of being able to not only utilize it for ourselves and really understand why we're good at what we do as far as each different role in the office for us, but also being able to put and place our team accordingly and serve them well. And that's what I think is so intricate and cool about, like, not only, I didn't even think about it in a coaching capacity, you being able to teach somebody how to utilize their strength, but also realizing, like, this is why you're good at these things, and this is why you lean more into this.
And before we really jump into that, because they're scurrying back there right now, we'll put you on the spot here in a few minutes.
Okay.
But before we go deeper into that, so continue a little bit of your story if you're going somewhere with this. We don't need to jump into you can go ahead and bring them in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, mine's in my binder. I'll go get it. Yeah.
So go into, let's back up a step now, and I'm going to hide these for a second.
Is that data that I have to analyze?
That's data. That's data you've already analyzed.
That's right. At least half of it, at least.
So getting into the Gallup Strength Finders tool and assessment, and kind of getting back to a little bit of that before we dive into a little more into that. Go ahead and continue on how that fits and what you're kind of doing with that. I'll let you take that over what direction.
Yeah, so I eventually kind of found myself in different.
Thank you. Yep.
I eventually found myself in different coaching roles. I'm actually now full-time a business coach for Edward Jones.
Cool.
And so
That's
that's kind of like my quote-unquote 9 to 5 these days, and then still working with my coaching business, Kaleo Coaching, outside of that, to build people up to the good work that they're called to. And that's really what I'm excited about. That's the thing that really gets me motivated and what I love to do, because I remember what it was like sitting in that cubicle thinking, I don't like this job. This isn't what I'm supposed to do. This isn't what I was prepared for. And that struggle's good. That's going through that struggle's good. But coaching can be so effective to help someone navigate through that decision making. And so I encourage people that, man, what we're really called to is to be an image bearer of God.
Yes.
At the end of the day, big picture, that's what we're called to do. How you do that, which is what the Clifton Strengths answers. It answers, remember, it answers how you go about, how you succeed, not what you should do with your life.
Exactly.
How you do that is decision making. You know, what are the needs in your area? What are those things that you're really particularly passionate about? What are you good at? Right? Where do those merge? And then from there, make a decision.
Yeah.
Go do something.
With us doing this too, it's like, so say you are in that situation, you are in that cubicle, whether you do or don't like it, just kind of put that to a side for a second, but you're there. And like you said, being an image of God and a servant of the kingdom, and being, okay, how can I be the best every day? And using a tool like this, and when we first met with you and we started going through our team and we had sat down and we were analyzing the data that I'll put you on the spot for here in just a second, I learned something very quickly, and that you were also like, yes. And there's 34 of these things that we'll go through here in just a second, but it's not, the ones on the lower end aren't what you're bad at, but very much the top 5 or 10, I started to say it's how you default. If somebody asks you to do something, you default into these categories, best first. And learning that about yourself has been something for me and for our team, that it's like, if I speak to them, if I ask them to do something, even if it's something they don't like to do, how do you deliver it? How do you meet them where they're at, knowing what you know about them because of the decision-making help that we have.
Yeah, don't ask somebody to go out into the community if they don't have woo in their top 5.
No, I mean, that was brilliantly said. I like to do an exercise with teams where I'll have them write a statement with their non-dominant hand.
Yes.
And they'll see, and I usually say, right, I use my strengths every day. It's usually this sentence.
I think I remember that one.
They'll write it, and then I have them switch to the dominant hand. And that's a helpful illustration of what it might be like when you're operating out of your natural talents versus not. Mm-hmm. Can you do it? Yeah. You can pull it off, right? Yeah. To your point, the bottom ones, it's not about like, hey, you're horrible at this and that. It's about, hey, you're operating in a way that's unnatural to you. Mm-hmm. Are you going to pull it off? Yeah. But when you try to hold that pen, it's going to feel weird. A
little foreign.
It's going to be foreign. You're going to be slower. Yeah. The quality is going to be a little less. You might even get frustrated. You might even start feeling like your shoulder get all like, oh man, this is really awkward, right?
You're like, your toes are curling on one side. You're holding your tongue just right.
Versus that natural hand where many of us, we can lift our eyes off the paper and keep going for a spell, right? Before you look back down. And so it's natural. It's fluid. Yep. It feels natural, right?
I attest it to energy driven too, because like a lot of times when you're able to in your job or in your position or in life utilize those top 5, those top 10 qualities about yourself as opposed to the bottom ones, you find that you have a lot more energy and you actually enjoy yourself, as opposed to if you have to always be in your bottom. As far as like I am not a data person, and you know that. Like if I were to have to analyze data all of my life, I would be like, my bucket would be empty every day.
Yeah, and there's some interesting research that actually kind of pinpoints a percentage of time that you need to be operating in your strengths to get to those positive effects that you just said. And so I'm not an expert on that, but there's basically like a threshold. Like, hey, does it mean that your strengths are an excuse to get out of work?
Right.
No, that's not the point of this tool. Mm-hmm. That's not the point of the tool. The point is to say, how can we get you riding with your dominant hand as best as possible, so that not only so that you'll experience some of those benefits, but so that the team will experience the benefits, and so that the organization will experience the benefit. And so there's a lot of individual impacts, there's a lot of group impacts, and that includes not just satisfaction and enjoyment and joy, but good quality.
Productivity,
thoroughness, team dynamics.
That was something I was going to bring up, because it's like the personal side of it is very good. And again, what I've learned and what I enjoy about it is it's the personal side of it helps you learn a lot about you and the people around you. You very much can take it that direction. However, that's not necessarily what it's for. At the very beginning of this, you said something very important. It's like it's a decision-making tool as well. But as you guys were just getting into, it's like, imagine take the personal side out of it, and imagine just having these roles and knowing it helping the productivity, helping make that shift of the graph go the other direction based on behavioral decision making, knowing the tools you have in front of you when you have these things. As you have one transmission making the car go this way, there's all kinds of different gears, cogs, and things that have to go and operate. And it's like, could go down the freeway in first gear the whole time? Yes, you could. Right. And you'd spend 9,500 RPM trying to do. Well, I would. You know?
However, which car are you driving? I have a feeling I know.
You know which car I'm driving. But being able to shift through the gears and making all of those gears and cogs work together, it's like how much more efficient, how much more fulfilled, how much easier is that to drive, how much more enjoyment do you have driving it and not hearing that all the time. Now, if I'm on the track, I want to hear it. We're buzzing it. It's a different story. Different cogs are spinning. But this is super cool, the coaching that you do and bringing all that to light. And just those tools and exercises you do during those sessions are awesome, because while you think you're doing it one way, it's like, oh, he's going to prove to me like it's easier to write with my right hand. No, there's so much more to that. Even when you do an exercise like that, that's like, whoa, it's like, how much more efficient is this? It's not see you're better with your dominant hand. It's like, how much more efficient in that? How much more enjoyment is that? How much more can you get done? And how much gratification do you have through it?
Yeah, no, it's good. That's a great analogy. And you had mentioned something earlier about the bottom. And so what you're referencing is the results of the assessment is giving you a rank order of 1 through 34 of your themes of talent. And so it's measuring. And
I'll put myself on the spot.
This is important because it's not a personality test. It's not measuring like, are you extroverted versus introverted?
Right.
Are you people-oriented versus task-oriented? There's some correlation to some of that with some of these, but it's measuring your patterns of thinking, feeling, and behavior. And so it's more than just the outward, like, hey, you're good at talking to people, or hey, you're good at reading information. It's like when you walk into a room and you don't know anybody, what's that initial feeling? Some people they light up, and not only are they good at it, they get energy from it, Erica Bosson. And some people may get a little bit anxious, and they get a little tense, and they kind of want to float in the back of the room, right? And so so my point being that it's measuring thinking, feeling, behaving, those natural instinctive patterns. Right. And so it's not necessarily ranking, hey, you're great at this, you're horrible at this. It's these are natural instincts. And then as we go down the rank order, these are patterns that are less instinctive.
Yes.
You probably, not only are they less instinctive, they might even give you some anxiety. Yeah, you're not as good at some of the tasks that might be associated with them. And so I always like to emphasize like what this assessment's actually measuring. Thought, feeling, behavior.
So
I love that.
Before, I'll have you go through mine first, and you can kind of take people through a little bit of what mine looks like. I believe the names are on the top right of that. But so in order for somebody to do this with you, what does this look like? How do they reach out? Where can they find you? Because there's going to be people potentially that are going to watch this or have more questions for us. Like how would they get a hold of you? I know.
KaleoCoaching.com, Kaleo, Kaleo, coaching.com is my website. Got some really cool updates with Kaleo Coaching, and so if people want to go out there, click on that Meet the Team, you'll notice that there's a second face.
That's so exciting, by the way.
So
congratulations.
My brother, who just retired from the Marine Corps, actually was a speaker at an event that we all participated in a couple of years ago, literally the weekend before COVID. Weekend before COVID.
That is nuts. I didn't even think
we
about
did that event on Saturday. Everything shut down Monday.
Oh my gosh.
And so
you're so right.
So anyway, I bring that up because he, along with you, was on a panel of local, leaders, although he wasn't local at the time, but leaders who were providing a good work in their community.
I love it.
And notice what he's saying here, guys. Good work. The G is capitalized most often.
That's right. I usually capitalize all 4 letters. Yeah. Good work. And so anyway, Mike is joining. He's almost done with his Gallup certification, and so he's really passionate about this tool as well. But even without this certification, he is a leader that brings 20 years of military experience, a lot of different deployments, a lot of leading other people on missions, a lot of experience on team development and leading with empathy. And
what's his number one?
His number one is, I was just staring at this. I know his number 2 is intellection. Adaptability. Adaptability is his number one.
In the Marine.
Yeah. So yeah, go figure. And then he has learner also in his top 5. I can't recall the rest of his 5 off the top of my head. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here. He's joined Kaleo Coaching, and he's going to help me be able to offer a lot more than just like a simple team workshop. Obviously, there's a lot of keynote speaking opportunities that he'll be able to add, because he just brings a whole lot of things that I don't bring.
Sure.
And
what a pairing!
But
That's
also just
so
expands
fantastic.
our ability to build people up to the good work they're called to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a cool pairing. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. So KaleoCoaching.com is where they can learn more. I'm on social media, Dan Vincent. Facebook and LinkedIn are probably the 2 best ones if you want to reach out to me through that. Dan@KaleoCoaching.com is a good email. Awesome. If somebody was interested either in this tool specifically or just coaching, whether that's one-on-one or group coaching, that's kind of been what I've been doing the last 6 years or so.
Yeah. So cool.
So that's what I love doing.
Yeah, we'll put all those links in the description of the
We'll make sure
podcast,
that
and we'll also put them up as we go through. And if anybody has questions for us, or maybe you missed it, or you just want to reach out to us and we can get you the information, you're more than welcome to do that too.
Yeah, we can put you in contact with them.
But so let's give them a little glimpse of what you kind of think through, just kind of foundationally. We're going to cliffhang them a little bit, but just I've got our whole teams in front of you. You have mine and Erica's in front of you. I've got the other 3 here. But just kind of take us through mine first a little bit, wherever you want to go with this.
Yeah.
Like however you would start if I were brand new to this. And as we display a little bit of this, go through it.
Well, I've kind of expressed already. There's 34 results, right? They're themes of talent. They're those patterns, right? And whenever you're taking the assessment, it's 177 questions.
Yes.
It takes 30 to 45 minutes, right? And each question is timed 20 seconds, because they want that instinctive response is most of the time the correct response.
I tell my team before they take this, I was like, don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Answer it totally genuine to you.
Don't say, hey, I'm a chiropractor, so let me answer this as a chiropractor.
Yeah.
Don't say, hey, I'm a dance coach. Don't answer this as a dance coach. Answer it as Dr. Dustin. Yeah. Answer it as Erica, right? Answer it as you. And
our number 1 core value, genuine.
Yeah, be genuine. Be genuine. And so it gives you your rank order. And so with each question, you're basically, if you imagine all 34 themes of talent as a bucket, with each question, you're putting a drop in a bucket. So drop, 177 times. You probably have drops in all 34 buckets, right? And so you could probably look at the bottom and say, oh, well, that doesn't make sense. I can remember a time where it seemed like this. Yeah, that's probably true. You probably have a drop in every bucket. But what this is doing is it's highlighting the buckets that have the vast majority of the drops. So we're saying this is what we want to focus on.
And let me preface this before you start and go into that, is these themes are all one word. There's one that really stands out because a lot of people would just look at this and see the word and be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Or, oh, well, that doesn't make sense.
Like, what is that?
Individualization, which is one of my top 5, is one that really displays why you need to understand what these are. So individualization,
why you should
somebody would actually think like, oh, you're probably really good at working by yourself. You like to do things individually. And it's like, no. Don't overthink. Don't think you know what that word means. Because individualization, which you'll get into, I'm just going to summarize it here real quick, is actually the ability for me to notice everybody else's individual talents and be able to put them in the right spot. Has nothing to do with me wanting to do stuff by myself, and she knows I don't. Like, I'd rather do it with people and groups. So don't think you know what the word means just because it's like, oh.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Yeah, individualization happens to be a very others focused talent. So when you look at it in page 1 here, and this might be fun if you wanted to share a copy of this so people could see. But
yeah,
that's a good idea.
Page 1 just kind of gives it the rank order, and then the following pages gives you some initial details about particularly your top 10, right? Because the philosophy behind this, really rooted in positive psychology, is that people are most successful and their life's going to be more enjoyable when they're doing what they do best. And so that means investing in what you do best and managing what you're not as good at, as opposed to looking at those quote unquote weaknesses or lesser talents and saying, oh, well, I need to invest more time into that so I can build them up. Now, this is saying, no, that's actually does not produce what you think it would.
Right.
You're better off focusing on what you do well. Don't fixate on what your weaknesses are. Focus on your strengths. Invest in them. You have a much higher chance of succeeding and experiencing some of these other effects if you do that.
Play in the fun buckets.
And there's time, the high analytical in me. I'd be happy to share the white papers behind all the data and the research. This is a lot of research from Gallup of these things that I'm spouting off. It really comes from
Play in the fun buckets, and riches are in the niches.
Hey, there
it kind of applies too. It's like focus. I mean, and as you go through this, that'll make more sense.
Yeah. And so one of the other things you see when you look at this is that there's colors. And so it's got your top 5 in bold. Really, we kind of say, hey, your top 10 are probably those dominant, maybe into 11 and 12, but certainly top 10 are what we would say, these are the ones, let's invest in these.
Right.
Right? There's different colors. The colors, there's 4 of them. So when you're looking at your results, there's 4 domains of talent, right? And so basically what that means is that when you look at the output of these patterns, they tend to be about something.
Right.
So the first domain is executing. So these talents that fall in that domain, they tend to be about getting things done. Like people that have a lot
GSD, get shit done.
People that have a lot of those executing talents, they just are about getting it done. They're list people. They're marking things off the list, right? The second one is influencing. They tend to be about leading and getting out in front of people, influencing people.
Right.
They can probably gather a crowd. They do that through those influencing talents. The third one, relationship building. They tend to be a little bit more of a small, crowded focus, but they tend to be about those deeper relationships.
Right.
Influencing might be shallow and wide, and I don't mean shallow in a negative sense. Shallow and wide in terms of like massive people.
Right.
Relationship building is more close and deep, right? And so, so fostering teamwork, really wanting to get to know you. They're probably not comfortable with a lot of superficial talk. They'd probably rather like, no, let's go deeper. Yeah, dive deep. The final one is strategic thinking. So it's all about absorbing information. And so when you look at these, how you get things done, how you lead, gather people, how you build relationships, how you absorb information.
I love it.
And so it points, and so that's what you'll see when you look at this. You'll say, oh, the colors are kind of scattered. What you typically notice is that your top 5, even your top 10, are probably clustered into a couple or 3 of those domains.
Right.
And so when you kind of zoom out, and there's some tools and visuals that I use to help people zoom out from an individual perspective, but also from a team perspective. When you zoom out, you kind of see that clustering, and you might think, well, what does that mean? Like Dr. Dustin, you like me don't have an orange color, which is the influencing theme, until outside of your top 10. For me, it's 13. You got it at 11, so you beat me a little bit. But you might say, oh man, influencing. Our tendency is to say, well, does that mean that I'm no good at influencing people?
Right.
And so I'm usually quick to say, that's not what this is saying. What this is saying is when you are operating at your best, your tendencies have to do with, for you, getting things done, GSD, right? It has to do with people, other people, like, concern with other people about putting them in the right spot. You have relators, so those close relationships. Includer, just very concerned about making sure people aren't left out. And so what we would say was, okay, well, what happens whenever I have to go to that networking event and I'm going to be in front of people, or I have to do that keynote? What do I do? Well, yeah, you're capable of that, right?
Right.
So what we do is we focus on your strengths. We go back to the point of the tool is, what strengths do you have that could help you in a situation?
What can you pull from?
And it's really interesting because, hey, you might say, oh, well, I have high futuristic, so how could that help me? And these are kind of the coaching conversations, some of the coaching conversations we have, where I'm not consulting you, I'm not giving you a strategy or a plan.
Yeah.
I'm leading you through questions and through this coaching style so that you can recognize, oh, wow, well, this talent actually really helps me operate in this areas, even though it doesn't really fall under that domain.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the first conversations we have. Another thing we can do is we can ask, well, who could you partner with?
Yep.
Right? Who do you have in your life
Yeah.
who can kind of compensate for some of those? They either compensate, and so you're like working together, or maybe you just straight up delegate and offload something that suits her better. Or maybe you let her take the lead and you ride her coattails, and she helps you by leading in a way that on your own you'd be writing with your non-dominant hand.
Right.
But when you're with her, she's somehow helping you kind of fit a task or a project area or what, we could make up all kinds of circumstances.
Yeah.
But you're kind of following her lead, and she helps you, or you help her do something that you're not naturally going to do as well on your own.
Yeah.
I can give you a specific example. We used to call ourselves the dynamic duo when it came to screenings, because I could pull them into the tent and he could talk to them and bring them into the practice.
Yeah.
And we're getting ready to do we're going to do a dinner here for our parents of student athletes. And so we've got quite a few people already signed up. It's going to be August 8th. Yes.
Come on in.
To this, it's like the influencing part. It's like, well, why would you leverage speaking? And it's like, it's not about that. But what I am very good at, what you said is my number one, is a lot of people still like to hear, so what is the vision? Like I can capture people with my make the world a better place. Here's what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
Here's why we're doing this. A year from now, 5 years from now, here's my plan for this. Here's how your student athlete's going to be better. Here's how your family and your health can be better. Like get my vision, and that's how I can attract people. It's not necessarily the quote unquote influencing as you would think of it by the book, but leveraging the tool that I have. That's been very helpful for me, because there is a time like you get a keynote spot, and I've been blessed to speak, not so much keynote, but been able to be on stages and kind of start that and do some speaking here and locally. But after I learned some of this, it's like, just own it. Like be the visionary, cast the vision, let people see genuinely what your vision is. And it's helped me speak better because it's genuinely and authentically me.
You're tapping into what you do best.
Yes.
And you're tapping into that natural instinct of, and this is what I'm hearing you say, of I'm not going to sit down and like come up with a 3-point speech. You're going to start with the vision, which comes from that futuristic. Now, futuristic happens to fall into that strategic thinking domain. These are loose domains. Obviously, you might ask with a few of them, like, well, how is that a strategic thinking one, right? It is, because one, I know you.
Yeah.
I also know a couple other people with high futuristic and ideation. It's because you're in your head.
Yeah.
You're in your head a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? And so...
Good, bad, and indifferent.
And so one of the things I like to encourage people that are in their head a lot is to have an outlet to get it out. Whether it's journaling, whether it's a routine conversation between you two or you and a friend, to just talk about ideas. I would wonder, I'd be curious, like how those speaking engagements help you get that out of your head, right? And so that's a great way to say, like, I don't have the textbook, like all these orange influencing theme domains, but I'm tapping into my strengths to help me with these opportunities. And for you, it's helping you get those things out of your head.
Yeah.
And for everyone else, especially for people that don't have futuristic,
Yeah.
who struggle with, I would walk into a place like this whenever you got it. And I remember seeing the videos of, it was the blank canvas. I would walk in and I'd be like, I don't know. I mean, we could put a desk right here. But someone like you walks in and you just, with the time to process, you eventually come to a point of, I know what I want. I know what it's going to
That's exactly what happened, because he designed
this whole place. And so for
place.
me, it's like, you can captivate me with that.
Yeah.
And that's the power of that kind of strength, is you can captivate, you can bring people in, and so on.
Yeah.
And I can talk to a wall.
So go ahead and roll through my top 5 and just give people a glimpse of.
So high futuristic, number 1, again, that's strategic thinking. It's all about being able to visualize 1, 5, 10, 20 years down the line. I know we've had conversations about vital performance many years ago, about what it's going to look like today, about what it's going to look like 10 years from now, right?
Right.
So that's that futuristic is usually thinking in the future. Right? Not necessarily what time's that first appointment,
Right.
but what's the year 10 version of vital performance.
Yeah, that's
Belief.
accurate.
Belief is an executing strength or theme of talent. Belief is all about operating out of a core set of values, usually unwavering, usually unwilling to budge.
Yeah.
Right? You might think of someone who's loyal, someone who's going to fly the flag and really champion the vision, right? Someone with high belief. A ranger is your number 3, another executing domain or executing theme of talent. A ranger is, I mean, you think of like an orchestra conductor, right? There's lots of different things going on at once, and they have a knack for understanding what's happening, understanding when they need to shift, when they need to adjust, when they need to start, when they need to stop. Right.
More here. We're
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So an orchestra, like it's a good visual for that. 4, individualization. We talked about that a little bit. It's in that relationship building theme. It's a concern for others. It's a knack for understanding and identifying. Like, oh man, you tend to be good at this, or you tend to get a little anxious when you're in these situations. You tend to kind of light up when you're in these situations. And so especially that sounds a lot like a ranger. And so coupled, like you can see how they can be really good at putting a team together and helping people find their sweet spot. 5th one, strategic. I always like to, and you probably have heard me say this a billion times, but strategic, I always like to think of like a topography of a parade route. You know, you think of downtown St. Louis, you're like, oh, we're going down Martin Luther King, we're going to turn right on here, and then we're going to turn left on here, and then we're going to go down. So strategic sees the whole plan. Roads blocked. Okay, zoom in, make adjustments. We got to pivot. We got to make the corrections. Zoom out. Okay, now we see the new plan. Another obstacle or another variable that we forgot or didn't consider or that came up as a surprise. Zoom back in, zoom out. So it's a consistent zooming in and zooming out. Able to make adjustments, doesn't freak out when unexpected things happen. Able to zoom in and zoom out to make sure that.
It's something I do a lot in that example too. I mean, even to the point of, you know, doing the parade route and finding this and this. Okay, when is the parade route? Okay, it's on a Thursday and it's downtown. Well, the Cardinals have a game at 1:20. Like, I'm already planning for that and which way not to go. It's like, it's dead on.
Yeah, good way to carry that analogy on. Yeah, so that's your top 5, and so you got 2 executing, 2 strategic thinking, 1 relationship building, and so I guess I would ask you, in what way does this help you do your job?
Oh, well, you'd mentioned delegation as we're building our team. I don't care who we hire. I'm not hiring specifics to strengths, but because I know everybody's strengths, I know what I can delegate off of and who to, or at least have the conversation of.
Yeah.
The people that I would pull together to be able to do a project. Hey, we're doing a dinner on this day. I need you guys to this.
Yeah.
How I speak. Like I said, if I'm in a speaking engagement, that's helped me a lot. How I communicate with my team. Here's how you can communicate with me better. Here's how, my day's kind of already planned. Try not to derail me from it. Find those holes and gaps. Here's what I need to hear. Kind of get to the point. So I'm able to help my team communicate with me better. So then I'm already serving them better.
Yeah, this is what you just said is so good, because it gets to like a different level in terms of understanding people, because this is not just about like, oh, you're good at talking to people. Sweet. Go to the chamber lunch. Go to the chamber lunch. It's about understanding that, okay, we understand your patterns. It means more than just what you can do. It means you have certain needs.
Yes.
Like you just said. And so it creates, this is an amazing development tool, because it creates a level of trust and safety within a team because now you know the motives that people have, what motivates people, and the needs that they have. You know what people bring to the table, and you know how certain situations might impact them. Again, not to use as an excuse to get out of anything,
right?
But as a way to say, how can we leverage what you do best? And based on what I know about you, how can I adjust what I do best in order to, get the message across or relate with you or communicate with you? And so there's a great line, not all situations require all of your strengths all at once.
Right.
And so I like to think of them as dials. And so when you are,
That's right. I love
you're,
that.
you're going to walk into a one-on-one with an employee, and you might have to deliver a challenging message, whether it's, you want to coach them on something. And you're walking into somebody who might be an empathetic person, and you want to dial down some of yours, and you want to dial up that relator because you really want to make that connection, because it's about communicating ways they can improve, or communicating something that you need to make sure that they know, right?
Yep.
So you want to dial down some of those high intense strengths that's about energy and accomplishment. And you want to dial up some of those relationship building, right?
And you can, and people who do this or have done this or are about to do this, I'll be real honest with you. I mean, there's a time and a place. Selfishness is necessary, and here's why I say that is because selfishly, I will express to my team how I operate, knowing this, how they can communicate with me better, because you look at my top 5, the whole team building strategy, the relationship strategy, the putting people in the right spot, but also me knowing I like to do it with more people. I want people involved. So having them communicate with me in such a way that helps fill me up in return. Not because I expect that from them, but because I know how I operate. I know how they tend to operate in default, and how we can just treat each other and communicate better. So I will, and we talk about this all the time. Here's kind of next time, if you can deliver it to me this way, here's what I need to hear, and have this ready too when you come with me for it. It's not a dig or a knock or a negative thing, but now I just killed 3 birds with one stone. We're more efficient. They were talked to specifically, and we're all filled up because of it, because we're utilizing everything in the whole circle. So I tend to really go over the top and deep and leverage this too. But jump into Erica's real quick and go kind of, we'll give a little contrast.
So she leads with a couple relationship building off the bat here with Includer, which you 2 share in your top 5. Includer, again, is very others focused. But catch this, it's not, this is how it impacts. You have a concern for others, but it also means you want to be included.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yes.
Right? And so I did a team session with a team once, and there was a change made about the time and location. Somebody didn't get the memo until late, and they showed up, and they were their demeanor, they were wearing it. They had high includer, we came to learn. Yeah. And it was an interesting kind of isn't that interesting how that works, is they weren't included in the message. And so it caused a little bit of micro chaos in terms of the day and getting them there on time and that kind of thing. Yeah. And so, that high includer, it not only means of what you think about others or how you think about others, but it also, it's I want to be included too, right? Yeah. And so empathy is your second one. Empathy is, I want to say you describe empathy. What is?
I don't know. Empathy for me, I actually found that I should not be in exam rooms with people because they very easy to trust me. I guess I give off this vibe of you can tell me anything and I will be there for you immediately. I'm always the mom of the group. I'm always the person that people come to. And I know how to play my, and not play, but I almost know how to dial myself down to where others are. Yeah. So that I can if I feel that they're on a vibe that's not all that great right now and I need to come to them and be there for them, I can feel that and almost engage in it. And then bring them out of it or bring them up from it. Yeah.
And that's the key. I can feel that in them. That's the key. Yeah. And so just real quick soundbite. How does that help you?
It helps me because in coaching, because I coach my high schoolers and all of that, and in team in general, if I can feel or see somebody's frustrated, or I can feel that their vibe's off, I can go to them and figure it out so that it no longer affects them the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Like if I can tell somebody had a bad morning, or if they didn't get their coffee, or if somebody got a bad test grade on in school or something like that, I can immediately kind of squash it and allow them to move along with their day so that they can end their day on a high note, as opposed to it ruined my whole day.
Yeah, you said you kind of give off the vibe. You do give off the vibe. I mean, because that's empathy included.
Yeah.
That's the power. That's the superpower of somebody with high empathy. Yeah. Maximizer and woo, both influencing. Maximizer is, I always call Maximizer the Tim Taylor of strengths, Tim the Toolman Taylor. Yeah. So I'm aging myself, but Tim Taylor was all about like more power. How can we need to replace the garbage disposal? How can we soup it up and give it more power? So that's what Maximizer is how can we make something greater? Mm-hmm. How can we make something good and make it better? Right? It's not making the old vintage classic to its original form. Right. It's like putting a new engine, a better engine in it, right? And all that kind of stuff.
That's a different
category.
Soup it
up. And WOO is an acronym. WOO stands for winning others over. Yep. And so it's very much, this is where you kind of get like the extroversion feel. It's very much comfortable, confident, talented in social situations.
Yeah.
Probably even energized by it.
Yes.
Right? And so a lot, and we could use me and you as examples. Yeah. We could go do those situations. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm drained and I need to go have some alone time.
You can always tell because I do want to be so involved and I want to be around people and I love the energy of other people. There's times, and we all go through these phases where chances are, if I want some alone time, or if I'm playing golf by myself, which is a foursome kind of game, or if I'm just going on a drive, if I'm by myself, chances are I've had to woo most of the day or for some period of time. It's very draining. Yeah. Not that I don't love it, not that I'm not good at it. It's dead even, I think, on me.
It's number 17 for you. And so, to go back to that dial metaphor, if those top dials are real loose and easy to dial up, dial down, once you get down to the bottom, it might be a little bit rustier because it's not a natural pattern for you. Mm-hmm. You got to hand the pin over to your non-dominant hand. You're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be.
It's almost like those buckets you talked about earlier. It's like you have water in each bucket.
Yeah.
How much doesn't really matter necessarily, but how much that is in that bucket, you can use it. You can use it well, but you're going to fill these top 5 or 10. You're going to use these ones, and then they have to be refilled. Yeah, that's the way I kind of think of it. Yeah. Because it's like I can woo. Like you put me in a scenario, it's like gotta go. Give me a goal. Here's the vision. Here's what you got to do, but it's gonna take this to do it. This is what it's like. All right, here we go. Grab that bucket. I'm off. And once that bucket's out, it's out, and I'm just
drained.
And going back to the other ones to really fill myself up.
No, that's I think that's helpful. That's good. And then Erica, your final one also shared with Dr. Dustin. Actually, it's your number 6, Dr. Dustin. I thought it was in your top 5. Relator.
Yeah.
Which is, again, a very others-focused. Like I said, and this is interesting because you have both. They're not necessarily opposites, right? Sometimes we kind of position them as opposites, but you're comfortable, confident, good, even energized in those social, shallow situations, but really you're also good in these kind of situations where you want to go deep.
Right.
You dial up that empathy, that relator. And and I love that dial metaphor because I think it's helpful to understand how you start to use them intentionally, which is really like you learn what the new language is, you make sense of the results, you start to figure out and own, like, oh yeah, I do see how this makes sense of the way I typically operate. And then you got to start to aim it, like the now what. And that's one of the reasons I love this tool. And whenever I work with a team or an individual, we get to that forward momentum. Like I love it because it doesn't keep you in the clouds talking about, oh, isn't it neat how accurate it is? And then you say, well, that was cool.
Sure.
I think I'll take DISC next week, and then I'm going to take the Enneagram next. Let's pause and let's figure out, how do we aim it? How do we say, based on what I have ahead of me, I've got this conversation tomorrow, or I've got this project or this responsibility. How do I start to aim my strengths? What do I need to dial up? What do I need to dial down based on what's going to be expected of me?
Something interesting that I've actually come to find with that is that I'm a terrible interviewer because I always make them great candidates.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because
she instantly,
like if I walk into a room, I do get energized by talking to anyone. Well, I don't take on any of the interviews anymore because I find myself wanting to pull it from them. And then by the end of the interview, they're great.
Make them the person.
And so which one or two do you think that is a reflection of?
I personally think it's my high empathy and my woo, because I'm energized by the fact that I don't know them in the first place. So I immediately want to get to know them, but then I'm also able to level with them really well. Yeah. So I can pull them into a great interviewer like super quickly. Yeah. And then I don't know if they're a good candidate or not because I think they're a great person. Yeah. And it's not that even that they're a great person, but I feel like they're going to be good because I've made them into because I can pull like the most like introverted human being into a social butterfly within 5 minutes of interviewing them.
You're describing your superpower. and you're like coming out of the interview, you're like, hey, he's coming over for dinner, or she's coming over for dinner.
Literally.
Like, what? You were just supposed to interview them.
No, that's literally the problem.
And
so we've handed off interviewing to other people because and it's not that, like I said, it's not that they're possibly not a great candidate, but like I would hire anybody because by the end of the interview, I believe that they are like the right fit.
But how powerful is it, or would it be, if you played the role of onboarder?
Mm-hmm. And that's what we've put myself into.
Right.
That's what she does. Onboarder, trainer.
Two great coaching questions that you could ask yourself or ask other people when you're talking about their strengths is, in what way does this help you? And in what way does this get in your way?
Yep.
Right? Because when you think of a quote unquote weakness, really it's just something that's in your way. And it might be something that's in your top 5 or 10, right? So that's why that dial up, dial down can be helpful, because is this actually something that's getting in my way based on the expectations of this task? Right? And so how can I dial it down, manage it, and dial up something else that can help me accomplish what needs to be accomplished?
Yeah. Yep. And I'm glad you brought up that example, because I was going to tie it into what you were saying too. Example that we did with me is on Mondays I get 15-minute touch points.
Yes.
I am no longer really in on team meetings. There's one time a month where I am. Why? Why would you think that is, Dan? Why did they cut me out of team meetings?
I don't know that the coach should be answering this question.
I can tell you.
It wouldn't be very coach-like of me to answer that.
Well, because I automatically go to vision. So with what we're doing now, and like I'm already, it's hard for me to stay present. So my key word is like I'm already down the back straight away. It's like, cool, the race has started, I'm gone, I'm out. So I bring all this vision, like, okay, well then what can we do next? What can we do here? Yeah. Have you thought about this yet? And I get so visionary. It's like, and they lovingly like try to take that on to serve me. But what we found is we started getting really stagnant in team growth, office growth, and impact, because here I am just defaulting into that. So like, okay, dude, hang on.
You know, one thing I remember saying to you, I remember I meant it as an encouragement to say that not everybody needs to see your vision. I don't know if you remember that, because a common struggle with people with that high futuristic is that they don't see what I see. Like it's crystal clear, or it's getting clearer, and I'm talking to people that don't see it. They're too concerned with what's happening in the next 6 hours, right? Right. And so my encouragement was they don't have to see it, right? In the way you see it. And that's part of you using your strength, is kind of casting it for them, but dialing it up and dialing it down.
There's a lot of growth in knowing that personally. There's a lot of growth development that happens there. Like, dude, it's okay.
And maybe a better way to say it is they won't see it in the same way you see it, or they won't see it as instinctively or internally as you see it. They are going to need it cast for them. That's part of the role you play.
Yeah.
But not all situations require all your strengths all at once.
Yes.
And so you don't need to walk into every scenario saying, guess what's going to happen 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Right?
And we actually, it was really cool when we first started this, was finding that out. My futuristic is not high. I can't remember which one it is. However,
24.
It's not high.
Mine's even lower.
But I was stifling him a lot because he would throw all of the futuristic at me, and since I can't grasp that action or those things, I would like not stop him, but I would actually almost make him feel defeated because I couldn't get there.
Put the fire out a little.
Yeah, and so we found in our relationship that I had to not play into it, but actually hear him out as opposed to be like, whoa.
Yeah, like you're stressing me out.
Yeah. And we've been able to have better communication because of that.
Yeah, this is beautiful. You guys are unique because you're married. So whether as a married couple or just if it were just business partners on their own, this is one of the powerful things about this tool that we help lead teams through. So there's a lot that you can do just on the individual level. Yeah. And then you bring in the team dynamics, and then you start to understand what people bring and what people need based on their results.
Right.
But whenever you can sit teammates down and you can say, hey, this is what I need from you. Yeah. Like this is when you're going to get me at my best. This is when I'm going to be at my worst.
Exactly.
This is what I need from you. And I'll tell you from a lot of experience in the corporate world, those conversations don't happen between a manager and their employee.
Right.
The conversations that typically happen is you didn't meet your metric, or you did meet your metric. Good job. Yeah. Keep it up. Yeah. Right. And so that's why there's burnout. That's why that contributes to burnout. Yeah. That contributes to quiet quitting. That contributes to all these other things that are basically talking about disengagement. And so whenever you can get a team that understands something that this tool can bring, it changes the way you interact with each other. It changes the way you understand each other. Yeah. And so you can say, oh man, he's not trying to stress me out. Right. He has a need. Now I have a need too. And so that's where communication happens. And so you set boundaries and you create opportunities where you can get that out, but you also create opportunities that match up with Erica's needs as well. And so it's such a powerful tool that we really love to dive in with people because it really does lead to not just positive impact in terms of productivity, but it leads to people that they enjoy going to work. They do good work. And they have more positive experiences than negative experiences. Yep. And they're less likely to get injured at work. I mean, there's all kinds of little fun little data points that this leads to, but ultimately, you just said it. It's they're equipped, they're clear on what do I bring to the table. This gives me a little bit of a clear picture of the good work that I have to offer. Yep. I could do it here, I could do it there, I could do it there. That's just decision making, right? And that's where a lot of coaching is fun to help people with that.
That's why I said at the very beginning, no matter what scenario you're in that cubicle, whatever it is, it's you're doing that good work. Yeah. Yeah. So with that being said, we could go on and on about this. We'll definitely do it part 2 as we start to dive in with our team here again. We'll bring you back and go through some more things, but super appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for
you're a great resource. KaleoCoaching.com. Kaleo.
Highly recommend. Yes. If you own a business, and I know a lot of our listeners do either own a business or have a
have to be in Missouri.
A business. Highly recommend Dan.
Yeah, and this is whether I appreciate that, and this is whether you're looking for like a team workshop, or even if you're just a leader and you're like, hey, I need coaching. We also do just one-on-one coaching. Yeah,
I love it.
So cool.
Super awesome.
Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned. Another episode for you. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.